Today, we're diving into a really big shift happening in the corporate world, the move to create a single global rulebook for sustainability. Let's get right into it.
It's a question we all kind of grapple with. You see a company claim it's going green or that they're going to be net zero. But what does that actually mean? Right now, it's incredibly hard to tell. It makes it tough to know who's really making progress and who's just, well, good at marketing.
For years, the whole world of sustainability reporting has basically been the Wild West. Seriously, no sheriff in town, so every company, every country, they just made up their own rules. And that led to, you guessed it, absolute chaos.
Imagine trying to compare two companies. One measures its carbon footprint one way and the other uses a completely different metric. It's like comparing apples to, screwdrivers. This chaos makes it nearly impossible for investors to make smart decisions and for us, the public, to hold anyone accountable. There's just no common yardstick.
But that's all starting to change. Out of all that confusion, a new global language for sustainability is being built. The goal? To bring clarity and consistency where there used to be just noise.
And the group making this happen is the International Sustainability Standards Board, or ISSB for short. Their mission is crystal clear: create one single, trusted set of rules, a global baseline, so that sustainability reports become just as reliable and just as comparable as financial statements.
They've started with two key building blocks. You can think of IFRS S1 as the grammar of this new language. It lays out all the general rules for how you have to report. Then you have IFRS S2, which is like the first chapter, and it applies all those rules to one of the most urgent topics out there: climate. Now, what's really fascinating here is how they're prioritizing their work. If you look at the top of this pyramid, their number one focus isn't on writing a bunch of new rules. Nope. It's making sure that the two they've already created, S1 and S2, are actually being adopted and used correctly. Below that, they're researching future topics, things like biodiversity and human capital. And it's all built on this foundation of working with stakeholders and making sure the new rules play nice with the old ones.
And believe me, this isn't just some theoretical idea stuck in a boardroom. This is happening right now. Countries all over the world are moving, and they're moving fast to adopt this new language.
Get this. A staggering 37 jurisdictions are already on board or in the process of getting there. That's a huge wave of early adoption, and it signals a major global shift.
And we're not talking about small players here. These early adopters are economic powerhouses. Together, they account for roughly 60% of the entire world's gross domestic product. Their influence is massive in the financial world, too. These same nations represent over 40% of global market capitalization. That tells you the world's most important financial centers are taking this very seriously.
But here's the real kicker, the part that really matters. They are also responsible for about 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So these standards are being put into practice exactly where they can have the biggest possible real-world impact.
So, how does a country actually do this? Well, the journey pretty much follows 4 logical steps. First, they just get familiar with the standards, understand what they're all about. Second, they assess if it's the right move for their market. Third, they build a detailed roadmap for how they'll do it. And finally, they execute that plan, turning it into official law and regulation.
But here's the cool part. This isn't a rigid, one-size-fits-all thing. And to see just how this global framework gets adapted locally, let's zoom in on 2 really interesting examples from Asia: Singapore and Thailand.
Both Singapore and Thailand are major economic hubs, right? But each one is taking its own unique path to bring these new global standards to life. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the flexibility of the whole system. Singapore is moving really fast, making this mandatory for its listed companies starting in 2025. Thailand, on the other hand, is planning a more gradual, phased approach, starting a year later with its biggest companies and then expanding. Both are starting with that climate-first focus, but they're tailoring the rollout to fit their local markets. It just goes to show you, the standards provide a strong baseline, not a rigid cage.
Okay, so let's zoom back out. What does this all mean for the future? Why does having a common language for sustainability reporting actually matter so much?
Well, the benefits are pretty huge. For investors, it's a game changer. They finally get clear, reliable data they can actually compare. For companies, it means they can stop juggling a dozen different reporting demands and just focus on one streamlined global standard. And for the markets as a whole, it builds trust and creates a much more stable, transparent system for everyone involved.
For decades, true transparency from corporations on sustainability has felt just out of reach.
We've seen the journey from a chaotic Wild West to the dawn of this new global language. So the question that's left is a big one. Will this finally be the thing that makes clear, honest, and truly comparable sustainability reporting a reality for everyone? I guess only time will tell.